This is Scooter, and Scooter is the robotic character that we're going to be rigging throughout this course in every single module. Scooter is a biped, and what that means is that he has two legs. So he's got a very similar stature to us as humans. I mean, he looks pretty humanoid except the fact that he's a robot. And the reason that he's a robot, or the reason that I chose to do a robot instead of a human, is the fact that a robot provides us with some unique challenges that are actually, something that keeps coming up within rigging, depending on what we're doing. But it just adds a little bit more of a challenge that I thought would be really fun. And what I mean by this is the fact that he has some elements on him that are deformable, just like our arms are. If we move our arm up and down or our leg, our skin moves and it deforms. And that's fine. And if I go in here and grab hold of his arm, I grab this controller and I rotate it. Let me just rotate it up here. You can see that his arm deforms, and it's kind of what we would be expecting from this kind of weird tube that he has for an arm. It deforms perfectly, but his fingers are rigid, and there's other elements like his chest and torso and pelvis. All of these are rigid. We're not actually going to be able to deform these. They have to have rotation points and pivots and things like that, but they're not actually going to deform. They're just going to be rotating around a pivot. And his fingers are a good example of this. You can see where they're actually, just by looking at it, where they have to rotate from. So if I grab the fingers and I click and rotate this, you can see that they're pivoting exactly where they're meant to be. They're not actually deforming in any way like the arm does when we do it. And likewise, if we move down and look at the legs and feet, if I start to grab one of the controllers here and rotate this, you can see that the foot, there's no deformation on that, but you can see that the leg up here, it has a nice smooth deformation. So we have some unique challenges with this character that is different from, just a standard humanoid character. But because he's kind of the same stature and the same thing, we're using a very similar joint layout, or a bone layout in this case, as we would for a humanoid character. Let me show you the display layers for this guy, we'll be setting all of this up, but let me show you it. So if we grab the display layers, you can see that I have a number of display layers in here. We have the skeleton, we have the rig, RIG, we have the geometry, we have fingers. So that's actually the fingers. If I turn off the geometry, you see that the fingers stay on because they're actually I'm using the geometry as the controllers for this, just as an example of what we can actually do with rigging. We can do a ton of things. And if I turn off the fingers, you can see that now the geometry is completely gone. CTRL stands for controls. It's the only thing left that is turned on. If I turn that off, there's nothing else in the scene. If I turn on the geometry and fingers, we can take a look at the character without all of the controls, and you can actually see what his geometry really looks like without those. And I think he's a kind of a fun character. He's totally off balance, but I think he's fun to work with. And again, he does provide some unique challenges for us. So let me turn back on the control. Oh, actually, let me just show you the skeleton. So we'll turn off the fingers, turn off the geometry, click on the skeleton. This is the skeleton that we'll be using for this guy. It's very, very simple, but it does the job for what we need. And again, you can see that he doesn't have any skeleton in there, no bones for his fingers, because we just use the geometry. Again, it's just another way of being able to rig that I wanted to show as we go through this, and I think it's a fun way of doing it. Let me turn off the skeleton again. I'll bring him back in the scene with the fingers and geo. Let me now show you how his hierarchy looks. If I come up here to the schematic view and I click on this, don't worry about where I'm going for these, by the way, because we will definitely come to these, and I'll be explaining all of the tools that we'll be using. You can see this is his hierarchy, and like I was saying, hierarchy is probably the most important part of rigging, if not it is. It's just really the most important part. I really can't stress that enough. So as you can see, I've actually named this top root, the root itself. So CH stands for character, underscore Scooter, underscore root for the root point. And you can see there's nothing else that sits outside of this root. So this hierarchy is very, very clean. It's very production ready. And this is how I send out a character if I'm working on a production, or if I'm just working for myself. I like to keep this as clean as possible. And you can see under here that I have a few things. So if I just read this out, it's character underscore geometry, geo underscore group, grp. And this just groups all of the geometry together. If I actually grab all of this stuff in here, it actually grabs hold of the geometry inside of the viewport, because that's just what it is. It includes all of the geometry. Outside of that, once we start going down and taking a look at things still in the geometry, you can see that the end there, I name it character, whatever it is, underscore left or right, L or R, and underscore geometry. And then you can see here that this is the pelvis. Now the pelvis sits here. If I go back and turn on the, let me just click this off. I go in here, turn on the skeleton, turn off the geometry so we can see it, come back to my schematic view, I grab hold of the pelvis. You can see that this is actually the bones for the character. So all of these are just the bones, and they're named a specific way, really easy, but it just means that we know exactly what they are. The rest of the stuff in this hierarchy are rigging things. I don't want to show you those just yet because we're going to actually go in and create them anyway, so you'll have a better understanding of exactly what those are when we actually create them. So this is Scooter. This is pretty much him in his completed state. We're going to add a few things in here, some really fancy stuff at the end. We're going to look at really enhancing this rig and making it fantastic so that once it goes out to the animators, they're going to know exactly what to do. It's like I said already, with the hierarchy, it's very clean. In the actual viewport, this is very clean. We can go in here and start moving this around. So you can go and grab this character actually. So it's ch underscore scooter underscore rig. And he's the final rig that we'll actually be creating. So you can go and check him out now if you want to. And, you know, you can grab this. This is the kind of the root control, the world controller. And we can move this around so we can place him wherever we want to. We can also rotate it and place him, you know, just so that it can be positioned in 3D space. Then we go in and start animating or moving the other controllers. Because of his center of gravity is here, if we grab this one, the legs will be affected and all of the upper body and torso will come along as well, as you can see here. So that really wraps up what I want to show you with this character. And this is what we're going to be creating. I think it's pretty exciting. I think it's pretty challenging. I think he's a fun character to have. And, you know, one of the cool things about him, one of the things I love, is if we come in here and I rotate this down, you can see that his arms are so long that they go through the floor. So we have to, if we're going to animate this, and, you know, as we're rigging it, we really have to think, can we get this arm? Let me just, you know, click around here and do this. Can we get this so it doesn't go through the floor? I think it's really fun to use. It's, again, just another challenge that I really like. I like his kind of his off-balance look. It kind of looks like an ape for a robot, so it's pretty fun. But as you can see, I think he looks pretty nice. I mean, aesthetically, he's a pleasing character. And these controllers, you know, they don't really get in the way. Obviously, we can turn them off, but for an animator to be able to see this character as we move this around is a really important thing. So let's get to it, guys.